Meanwhile, there's this surveillance on American citizens via TikTok. The negotiations between TikTok and the government delayed, they tell us, over national security concerns. Indiana, the AG in Indiana now suing TikTok, accusing the company of targeting minors with adult content, as well as surveillance programs in place. State Attorney General Todd Rokita writes this: TikTok is actively exposing our children to drug use, alcohol abuse, profanity, and sexual explicit material at a young age. This is part of the suit. The other part is the fact that it is, getting all of this information on minors. Texas Governor Greg Abbott became the 5th state to ban TikTok on government-issued devices. So this is gaining some strength here on TikTok, and yet we don't have a decision on a federal level.
No, I think it's encouraging that folks on both sides of the aisle are waking up to this, because, as you said, Maria, it's not just a surveillance threat. It's an offensive weapon that you can use to manipulate people who are using the app. India banned this app in June 2020 when I was in the administration, and they didn't just ban TikTok. Eventually, they banned almost 60 apps. We should be following their lead. Why aren't we banning things like, for example, WeChat, which many Chinese Americans use here in New York, and they get propagandized by the government, right? It's their only source of news. So it's not just TikTok. It's a whole suite of apps that we need to look very carefully at. And you know what? I hope this administration wakes up, because this isn't a partisan issue. National security is not a partisan thing.
That's right.
We need to, the first role of government is the security of its citizens. And looking at things like this, where, economic innovation is now becoming a military, a national security issue. That's something that we have to grapple with, recognize, and deal with.
Well, I mean, look, if that were a priority, the southern border would not be wide open. But it is not a priority. But real quick on this issue, Huawei, right? Recently, the FCC said that it was going to ban new orders from Huawei. But what about all the Huawei equipment that is already in place? It's already, as Secretary Pompeo says, inside the gates of America. So whatever the FCC is saying about what's to come with Huawei, I want to know what they're going to do with the Huawei equipment that is already here and in so many corporations and surveillance.
No, look, it's a big problem. And you've identified the problem. What about the surveillance cameras, in my apartment building, which are Chinese made, right? I mean, this is an issue that is just so complex and so difficult. And just back to where we began, Saudi Arabia, Huawei has built a lot of their telecommunications infrastructure. That happened under a Republican administration that was friendly to Saudi. This is a big challenge. The good news is that we are waking up. Our allies and friends in places like Britain and Australia have woken up. But you're right. The scale of this challenge is immense. And I think, unfortunately, it may take a major shock, China invading another country in a significant way, or, we have a massive cyber attack or something happening, to really give our political actors the courage to do what's right. Because ultimately, it takes an enormous amount of political courage to stand up and say, hey, I'm going to ban an app that everybody's kids around the block are using, right? Who's going to do that unless they're forced to do it?